Welcome everybody. This is our Tech Talk. We do these every Friday at noon. We bring a different technology topic. We do record these sessions, so if you're not able to stay for the whole thing or if you miss it, I do record it and post it to the library's Facebook or our YouTube channel. Today we are going to be talking about library resources that you can access from home. Everybody is spending a little bit more time not in public than we used to. And I've gathered some of my favorite resources and some of the things that are the most popular. Some of these you may be familiar with. Hopefully everybody does learn about something new today. But I just wanted to start by introducing myself. My name is Caitlin. I work down at Central Library in the Digital Literacy Lab, where I teach technology classes. We are going to talk about quite a few different things today. I don't really have slides for this class because we do it just kind of browsing the library's website. So I am going to go ahead and route over there. So if you go to tulsalibrary.org, you can access this from home. There's a mobile version. It works pretty well. This is a website I visit daily, and I hope you do too. And we're just going to kind of look at the front page for a second. Up here at the top is where we post alerts. These have been particularly important as of late, since we do have a lot of openings and closings and hour changes. Right now, Schusterman Benson is closed for building repairs, so you can find alerts, and we do update this as we have them. On the page, there's a few things that kind of stay the same. This block of boxes right here has different resources. Right now, we have some voting resources because national elections and there are some local elections coming up. We also have coronavirus information, and that updates fairly often if we have information about express service or if we're reopening more branches, you can find that there as well. Remote resources, these are resources that were put together about information that you may need to access if you have students at home, if you yourself are working from home, and it's a good thing to thumb through if you haven't taken a look at it. If you scroll down the page a little bit more, these get changed out fairly often. Hispanic Heritage Month, we've had lots of events for that. Book Sandwich In is a series of programs that we're doing right now. We also have staff picks on here. I actually update these and we add staff picks from different staff around the county of books that they're enjoying lately. Down here in the new and noteworthy, this is something that I like to point out to people. I imagine most people who are going to watch this or are currently attending are big library power users. And this is a thing called Wowberry, where you can actually get a weekly email sent to your inbox that has new releases in it. So every time we purchase a book at the library, at the end of the week, all of those purchases concatenate together into a Wowberry email. This comes out usually Sunday morning. And if you look through here, you can see we've added hundreds of titles in the last week. And you don't have to look through the whole thing. So say maybe you're a romance reader, you can come in and look specifically for romances that we've added in the last week, and go ahead and get yourself on the holds list. So if you utilize library resources a lot and you wonder how people get on the holds list so fast, Wowberry is probably how they do it. To sign up for it, you can just go here to our front page and select sign up for a free weekly new titles newsletter, and it'll ask for your library card number, or I think it'll ask for your email address, and then you have to find Tulsa City-County Library as the library to sign up for. Down here at the bottom, we also have links to all of our social media channels, including the library YouTube, where we have lots of recorded programs available. But what we are going to explore today are kind of these tabs up here that stay the same pretty much all the time. So we are going to start with the Books, Music, Movies Plus tab. It's the one that I utilize probably the most often because of a few things. There's a link to our catalog. So if you've been a library user for a while, you are probably pretty familiar with the library's catalog, but I'm going to show you hopefully a few new tricks that it has. I'm going to admit somebody really quick. So if you come here to the library's catalog page, you can get logged in. All you need to log in is your library card number and then your password. Your password should be something that we set up for you when you got your library card. If you don't know it, we have a format that we usually use. It's usually the year you were born. But if it's not that, you can give the library a call, or the next time you're at your branch, ask them and they can reset that for you. So I'm just going to get logged in here really quick with one of my TCCL accounts. It's my TCCL staff picks card. So here on your dashboard, you can actually see a few things. Over here on the left-hand side, you can see what items you have checked out. You can see if you have items on hold. You can also look at your borrowing history, and this is a thing that I like to tell people about. You know, so when you check out books from the library can see what you have checked out at that moment, but once you turn it in, that borrowing history goes away. So if you were to come up to me and ask me what book you had checked out a month ago, I could not log in and tell you that information. But if you set out your borrowing history to save, that information will save here in BiblioCommons. It's still only accessible by you, and you have to turn the feature on for it to work. But I personally use Goodreads to track my reading, but if I forget to update it and I'm trying to figure out what books I've read recently, I usually go here to see what I've had checked out. You can also see if you have fines and fees and get those paid, although we are fine free nowadays, so it's a little harder to rack those up. But I'm just going to come back over here to my library dashboard. And also on this page, you can see lists. So if you have not played around with lists a whole lot, BiblioCommons is the system that it's our catalog that we use, kind of the front side of it. So when you search our card catalog, or when you search our card, or not our card catalog, we don't use that term anymore, our catalog, you are looking at BiblioCommons. So that's kind of the system that we use. Lists is one of the functions that BiblioCommons has that I probably use most often. Each month we publish a list of staff picks, and on this account, you can see all the lists that we've posted previously. I've got one in drafts. You guys here have the sneak peek. November staff picks are from the Human Resources Department. But with these lists, these are really handy because you can share a list of books. Say you have, you know, the holidays are coming up and maybe you want to give a wish list to your spouse or to your sister who's looking to buy you a present for the holidays. You could make a list of books that you want in BiblioCommons and send that to them. It's pretty easy to make a list. You can find lists a couple of ways. You can, once you're logged in, you can go up here to the top right-hand corner and go down to your list. And once you're in here, you hit create a new list. There's two different types of lists that you can use. There's guides and recommendations, and then there's if you liked. Most people use this one, but it's pretty easy to add. I'm going to add a title, Caitlin's holiday wish list. I'm going to add a description. Please buy me all these books. I deserve it. And then to add an item, it's pretty easy. You can just type in a title. I'm going to type in When a Scot Ties the Knot, a delightful Highland romance book that I read a few years ago. And then I can just hit added and this item's on here. And once I have a few items on here, it'll update the covers over here. And then once you've published it, you can share it pretty easily. So lists are great. I use lists personally for lots of different things. Usually at the end of the year, I'll make my favorite books of the year list that I can share either on the library social media or with friends who I'm giving recommendations to. But there's lots of ways that you can use it. And it is pretty easy to get started making your own list. You can also, like I said earlier, probably most people who watch this are kind of power users, and there's lots of things that you can do in the catalog to both find new books, to kind of explore and find new books you want to read. So I'm going to look up that same book that I just looked up, When a Scot Ties the Knot, and say I'm looking for something similar to When a Scot Ties the Knot. So here I've searched. One thing that we try to do is lump books together. So this title is available on a couple of different ebook platforms. We have it on audiobook, we have a large print, and they kind of all group together. But when I click on this, it will take me to the record page. And on the record, you can see lots of information. You can figure out where it's available. You can come in and read reviews left by other BiblioCommons users, which are handy. You can even go in and rate your, write reviews yourself. One thing that's kind of nice, if somebody writes a review from Oklahoma, or from the Tulsa City-County Library, those reviews will show up here at the front. So I can see this is probably somebody who lives in our area. Over here on the right, there's bits of information that I find really helpful too. Say you are hoping to find this series that this book is part of. You can see that it is part of the Kessels Ever After series, and we could go click on that and it would take us to the list of books in that series. We've also integrated a database called Novelist into our catalog. I'm going to talk a little bit about Novelist later because it's a database that I really like. But Novelist uses appeal factors, is what we call them. So reasons why you like books. Is it character driven? Is it, maybe a thriller? It'll use kind of those different appeal factors and find similar books. So if you liked When a Scot Ties the Knot, you may like some of these other books that show up over here. Also on here, you can search by subject headings. So maybe you're looking for books with soldiers and then fictional books about soldiers. I could click on that subject heading and find more books with that subject heading. And then we looked at list earlier, but one thing that's really handy is whenever books get onto lists, the list will kind of tie to the record and show up here on the right-hand side. So say you really liked When a Scot Ties the Knot. If you're a romance fan, you would definitely enjoy this book. It's funny. But I can actually come over here, see what other lists it's on, and maybe I want to find books that there's so many to choose from. Guys with Kilts. So I can come in here and look at a list of guys with kilts. This was made by Douglas County Libraries, and it is a list of books that they put together with guys in kilts. Outlander's on here. It's a pretty popular one. But the list thing is fun, but exploring the page where you find catalog items on the records, there's lots of information on here. So definitely suggest you look at that if you're looking to find some new reads. Another thing that we have on here with BiblioCommons, I have, personally, I said I use Goodreads for myself, but I have a lot of coworkers who use BiblioCommons instead of Goodreads. So maybe this is a book that you want to read later, but you don't necessarily want to place it on hold, and you don't necessarily want to read it right now. Something that you can do is create shelves for yourself. The BiblioCommons has 3 shelves that it creates for you automatically. There's the for later, the completed, and the in progress shelf, which is kind of like, I'm reading it right now, I want to read it later, or I've completed it. But say I want to read this book later, I can go ahead and just mark this as a for later book. And when I go to my for later shelf, it will show all of the books that I have said I wanted to read later. From here, I could place the item on hold and say I want to pick it up at Central because that's where I'm at most often. I can hit confirm hold, and the item is placed on hold for me now. Now I could go back to my library dashboard, and you can see that I've placed the item on hold. From here, this is something that is not necessarily what I advertised to talk about in this class, but it is the thing I like to point out to people. There's a thing called pause hold. If you are going on vacation, or maybe you have too much to read, but you don't want to lose your spot in line on some of the holds lists, one thing you can do is actually put pause on your hold, and it will keep your spot in the line. So say you're number 193 out of 500, you'll stay there. And then when you're ready to get your books again, you can just hit resume hold, and it'll put you back into that holds queue, and it'll save your spot where you were at. I don't want this book because I've already read it, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit cancel. But it's all pretty easy to do from your library dashboard. So we are going to go back to this books, music, movies plus tab and look at just a few other things on here. Probably the thing that I would recommend the most that you look at if you've not already is our digital collection. Getting to the library can be difficult. We only have our regional branch, our regional libraries open right now, so maybe not your neighborhood branch. We actually had a reader reach out to the library and tell us that she has started reading ebooks during March, back when the libraries were closed for a few months. And she was able to figure it out. Staff were able to help her over the phone, and she's read, I think, 26 books in the last few months on her iPad, which I thought was great to hear. But on this digital collections page, you can find all of the different apps that you can download ebooks and audiobooks with your library card for free. Now, some of these might be, I think all of these are, okay, yeah. I think all of these are available all the time on most devices. And the reason we have so many apps is because we work with different vendors to get different items in. So it can be a little hard to navigate if you're not used to it. But there's a couple that I use probably most diligently, and that is going to be Overdrive and Hoopla. So what I'm going to do really quick is actually connect my cell phone to this computer really quick. Let me get it shared. And sorry, this always takes a second to connect. Okay, so I use a lot of these e-reading apps on my cell phone personally. I like to read when I'm at the grocery store. I like to read when I'm on the bus, any number of places. And there's a few apps that I wanted to point out. So this kind of really colorful 4-book app, if you go to your app store on your device, that could be the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, depending on what type of device you have. If you search Tulsa Library or Tulsa City-County Library, this is an app that will show up. And in the app, you can do a few things. You can kind of see your account just like we did on our website, where you can see what you have checked out, what you have available. You can also come down here and find different locations that are near you. You can see library events that are happening. But there's a couple of things on here that I use most often, including my library card. I'm not going to show you my library card number just because it's something I like to keep private. But if you don't have room in your wallet for your library card, but you have a phone, you could actually get a digital version of your library card that you can use on our self-checks. The thing that I use most often is this scan and ISBN function. So with this, I am going to go ahead and start this, and it uses your camera to search our catalog. So if you didn't catch that, I have a book here in front of me, and I scanned the ISBN barcode on the back. And what it did is it brought up it searched the catalog by that ISBN, and I can find this book that I could then go ahead and get checked out. So say I wanted to listen to it on CD, I could hit request for pickup and place a hold on it pretty quickly with my phone. This is handy if you're at a bookstore and maybe your eyes are bigger than your pocketbook, or if you are visiting a friend's house and they have a book. Not that we visit friends' houses anymore, but the library app, it's free to download, and it's a pretty handy tool. But a couple of other apps that I wanted to show you briefly are Libby. So Libby, if you're familiar with Overdrive, Overdrive has been around for a while. It's a platform where you can borrow free library books with your card, and they have thousands of items on there, both ebooks and downloadable audiobooks. To get this app on your devices, there's a few different ways you can do it. It depends on what type of device you have. But if you look at that library webpage we were on earlier, one thing that's really handy is it actually has different services. And then once you go into those services, it'll break it down by devices. So if you have like a Kindle Paperwhite or a Nook, it'll give you directions based on what type of device you have. But once you're logged in, or if you're using the browser, this is really handy. There's lots of different searches that we can do in here. So I'm just going to hit explore, and I want to check out something right now. I don't want to get on a holds list, so I'm going to go ahead and select what's available. And say you're looking for an audiobook, maybe you're going on a road trip this weekend, we can look for available audiobooks. And you can see there's 47,461 audiobooks that we could download right now. But maybe you're looking for fiction. You can also go in and refine it. Maybe you are looking for things just in English, and maybe you want to sort by release date. Maybe you're looking for something new. You can also see there's lots of different genres that they sort by. So it's Halloween, maybe you're looking for some horror. And you can see here, there's several we could check out. Say I want to check out Max Brooks' Revolution. I'm just gonna select borrow on here and borrow again. And if I go to my shelf, it will show up on my shelf under recent loans. Once you get these apps downloaded to your device, you'll usually have to log in with your library card or create an account, depending on what type of program you're using. But you can see it's already downloading it to my device. And if I wanted to play it, I could just hit open audiobook and start playing it now. Now, one thing that's nice to do if you have finished a book and you're done with it, you can click on this little this little thing right here, manage loan, and hit return early, and it will return the book so somebody else can download it. But you can see here on my loans, the books that I'm reading right now, it'll also save recent returns. So if you didn't quite finish something before it returned, you could go back and find that information. But Libby, it's free to use. It's pretty easy to use. And they have a huge selection on there. And we've recently gotten rid of one of our apps, RB Digital, was purchased by Overdrive. So they have expanded their audiobook collection pretty heavily on Libby. So if you are looking for some audiobooks, it's the one that I would recommend downloading. The other app I wanted to mention is Hoopla. Hoopla is a really fantastic resource, especially if you have a book club. So one of the hardest parts about using library resources for, say, a personal book club is we don't always have, say 20 copies of the same book readily available if you do have a larger book club. But one thing that's great about Hoopla is you can actually browse things, and everything that is on Hoopla is available all of the time. So say you have 20 people that all want to check out Rick Riordan's The Trials of Apollo, a really popular series with kids. All 20 people could check this book out at the same time, and you wouldn't have to worry about people not being able to get a hold of it. They have a pretty large ebook collection. They also have a lot of comics and graphic novels. I'm a big graphic novel fan, so I use Hoopla a lot for that. But you get 6 free downloads a month per library card. So if you have several library card users in your home, you can also use their library cards on Hoopla. So that's a pro tip there. But you can browse by genres. So say you are wanting to have a conversation about race with your teens, we could look and see what kind of YA books they have on that. And they have a collection of fiction and nonfiction. And it's pretty easy to check out. You just hit borrow. It'll start downloading the title to your device. And then you can go to my Hoopla and find your book there. And we could just open it up and start reading it now. So pretty easy to use. One thing I like about all of these apps is they have different features, so you can change the text size if you prefer a black background or a gray background if it's easier to look at. But Hoopla is great, and it's especially nice if you have a book club that you're working with. So I'm going to go ahead and unshare this and get back to my computer. Let's see here. Stop. Okay. But like I said, we have several apps. If you have questions about those, feel free to contact the library or drop questions down below in the chat. But this is a good page to find information about our digital collections. Now, moving on from that, another thing that you can find on the Books, Movies, Music page is a link to a service called Your Next Great Read. Your Next Great Read is a service where you can fill out a survey. It has a few questions. I'm just going to open this up really quick because this is let's see here. You will have to fill out your name, your email address, and phone number, which I'm just gonna and your library card number. And on this next page, it's going to ask you a series of questions. It'll ask you things like list some books that you've read recently that you've enjoyed, list some authors that you didn't enjoy. It'll ask you to describe like what kinds of things you look for in books. This is the follow-up survey here, so I probably should have gone with the other one. But essentially, we go through, we ask you questions, and then we put together a reading guide for you. So this reading guide example was for somebody who really liked All the Birds in the Sky by Charlie Anders and The Wings versus the World by Jade Chang. And they're super interested in character-driven focused books, and they have an appreciation for language. So this got assigned to a librarian or library staff who went through and found suggestions for this reader. We usually put 3 to 5 author suggestions, and we'll make a suggestion for which book of theirs to start with. And then we usually provide reasons as to why we picked these items for you. And then we'll recommend anywhere between 6 and 10 books that you should try out. And then usually at the bottom, we list some upcoming events or resources that we use to help figure out book suggestions for you. These are really fun to put together. I'm on the teen team and the adult team. So I do reading guides for adults and teens, but we have different library staff who have kind of different interests and different expertise. So I do a lot with romance and nonfiction, but I have a coworker who is really into horror, so she's really good at picking good horror books. Right now we offer the service for tweens and teens, and then we also have an adult one. And you can also let us know, like, do you prefer audiobooks or ebooks or print books, and we'll kind of personalize the suggestions for you based on that also. So that is that. Also on this page under reading resources, we have a few things on here. We post a monthly staff picks. We also have some good resources. You know, if you're in a book club and you're trying to revitalize your book club or find some reading guides, we have some lists of good resources to find information on that. And then there's also on the previous page, a newsletter that we send out weekly that has different author events that happen around town. So I definitely recommend checking out this page, but we are actually going to move along and go over here to the research tab. So after the books, music, movies, research page is the research tab is the one that I use most often because it has the most of our databases on it. Our research center keeps this page up to date, and we have all sorts of things on here. There's links to our resource centers. So if you have an interest in maybe Spanish language materials, the Hispanic Resource Center is a fantastic place to go. Our genealogy resource center has links to really good resources if you're interested in genealogy or family history. But the things that we're going to look at here are our journals. So say you are a big reader of newspapers, magazines, journals, but you can't come into the library right now and read them. Luckily, we subscribe to thousands of journals and newspapers that you can access for free with your library card. So an example, I read a journal monthly called Computers in Libraries, which I'm sure nobody is shocked to hear because I'm super into computers and libraries. And I just did a quick search for that, and apparently we have this available from 1993 to present in these different resources. So I'm just going to click the first one, Academic Search Premier. When you're not at the library, it'll ask you to log in with your last name and your library card number. So I'm just going to get logged in, and it will take us to the database page, which is not working right now. So I'm going to go back and try it on a different one. So I'm going to look at Master File Premier. Hopefully this is also not an EBSCO. Oh, it is. Okay, cool. So on here, I can go to 2020 and look at the latest, which is the October 2020 issue 7 of Computers and Libraries. And I can just start looking and reading all of these fun articles. Just hit open the PDF and I can start reading. Oh, this is one of my favorite authors. one thing that's nice is they also over here on the left-hand side have like a contents table, so I can navigate pretty easily to the next article as I'm reading it. So like I said, thousands of journals. Maybe you read something a little less academic-y, like maybe you want to read the Tulsa World. I can do a quick search for Tulsa World and see that it is available in America's newspapers. America's newspapers doesn't show you quite the normal view you would see with the Tulsa World. You know, if you had like a physical paper, you'd see pictures and kind of the layout of the newspaper. With America's newspapers, you'll just kind of see the text of the stories. But say I want to read October 23rd, I believe is today's issue. I can click on that. And let's see here. Is there anything not depressing? It is unlikely. It's been a hard year. Ginny Graham, be civil to our civil servants who are working at local election boards. I think that's great advice, Jenny. But I can come in here and just get started, read through it. And it doesn't always have pictures, which, you know, if you're a more visual person, that's kind of a bummer. But you can access the Tulsa World from the comfort of your home with your library card, so that's pretty handy. But that journals thing is pretty handy. Also on the research tab is a list of databases. So we use the term database for a lot of things, but they're in alphabetical order. We're just gonna hit a couple of them because we don't, I could literally keep you guys here all day, but I'm not going to. But the first one I wanted to talk about is Ancestry. Now, Ancestry is usually a database you can only access from the library. Right now with COVID-19, they have made it available from home, I think through the end of the year. I don't know if they're going to renew that to next year, but they've been very generous to let people access this from home for now. Usually it's only accessible at the library, but with Ancestry, you can look at billions of documents and records. My sister is big into family history, so she's found lots of stuff on here, including like birth records and land deeds, military records, all sorts of stuff. So if you are looking to do some family history research, this is a great place to look. They have a search function in here, and you can search by particular things. So say you have a family member in the military, you could search. So I'm going to do a search for my dad. I know he was born in 1964. Putting my dad on blast here. Don't tell him I don't remember when his birthday is. I'm like low-key sure this is it. Okay, I'm going to be embarrassed if that's not actually his birthday. But I can search and find military records for my dad, which is handy, especially, you know, there's lots of things you need military records for, like if you need to use VA services or whatever you're looking for. But Ancestry is a great place to look. And for now, it's available from home. Going forward, it'll probably just be available at the library. Also on this database list is my favorite database. And I say the word favorite a lot because I like lots of things, but this is the one that I use the most often from home. It's called A2Z World Food. A2Z World Food, I usually have to log in a couple of times to get it to look. I'm gonna try that one more time. A2Z World Food is gonna look like it's supposed to look when I hit it this time. If you ever open a database and it doesn't look quite right, just back out and try again. But with A2Z World Food, this database has food recipes and food culture by country. So you can explore the world from home in your very COVID-free safe home and find food from all over the world. So a thing my friends and I used to do in the before times, we used to get together monthly and cook food from different parts of the world. So say you're wanting to have a family, you know, a group party, or maybe even a family night that you want to make it a little more exciting. We could go to Kazakhstan, and on these pages, it will give us information about food etiquette, what kind of drinks they enjoy in Kazakhstan, what kind of foods they have that grow there naturally. And then the thing that I really enjoy is they have recipes broken down by different categories. So say somebody's going to make an appetizer, we can go and look at what appetizers they have and what they normally eat in Kazakhstan. And one thing that's really great about this, say we want to make gutak, which is an herb fritter. I love fritters. It's deep fried, so who wouldn't love it? But you can see how much prep time and cook time it takes. So this is about 15 minutes prep, 20 minutes to cook. And it looks like there's question marks, so I'm not sure. But usually, if it's something that's like gluten-free, it'll have a check mark here. I don't think this is gluten-free or dairy-free. But you can look at the full list of ingredients, and then it has directions. And one thing that you can do is you can either print it if you have a printer at home, or you can share it with somebody. But they have lots of recipes on here. And one thing that I did a lot in early quarantine was just made a lot of foods from all over the world. The thing that I use A2Z World Food for the most, though, is their ingredient search. So here at the top of the page, we can go and browse by ingredient. So I have a farm subscription that I get. So like weekly, they send different produce. And say you got, let's see here, a particular herb in. A thing they do is they send me a lot of dill time to time. So I could go into herbs and search for dill and see what recipes come up with dill in it. Now this is really handy if you have something in your pantry and you want to try something new, but this will tell you about dill as an herb. And then down here at the bottom, it'll give us some recipes that we can browse that use dill in it. Now, searching by a herb is not always the best idea. Say you have some salmon at home, or maybe eggplant, something a little sturdier. You can also use the search function to find recipes. And as part of the search function, you can go into advanced search and say your home is halal and dairy-free, which I think is the same thing, and kosher, and you want to search for things with eggplant. I am going to see what eggplant recipes I can find that are dairy-free, halal, and kosher. And let's see here, we've got some baba ganoush, which is an eggplant spread. Sounds delicious. It's made throughout the Middle East and North Africa and only takes about 40 minutes to make. So it's a good way to find stuff to do with things you have in your pantry, or if you have an ingredient you just don't know quite how to use. It is a very fun database to explore. So I'm going to back up a bit and get back to our database page. And the next one I wanted to look at, this is actually one that I had not seen before. I was exploring this list to kind of figure out what I wanted to talk about, and this is one that was new for me. It's called the Hobbies and Crafts Reference Center, and it's a database that has how-to instructions for different crafting things. So say you're super into needle crafts and textiles, and you're a knitter. I don't know enough about knitting to pick the right thing, so I'm just gonna, okay, kitchens and baths. Let's see what they have for us here. They have turmeric tea hat and scarf. And we can look at the PDF full text, and it looks like this has a full set of instructions on how to knit this very lovely hat and scarf. So if you come to the library a lot to browse our knitting section, I have some good news for you. You can do this online now. And they have, when I was looking through it, a pretty big variety of options to choose from and lots of different crafts and hobbies to look through. So definitely recommend, especially if you have kids at the house right now and you're trying to come up with craft ideas. They have a whole section on kids crafts. So I was glad to find that because that is not one that I had explored before. Another one they have on here that I have not looked at a whole lot is Home Improvement Reference Center. So if anybody is looking to do some home improvement projects over this very what I suspect is going to be a very long winter. You can see if they have some information on plumbing for your bathroom. So maybe your sink is having some issues. They have instructions on installing a pedestal sink. And this, step-by-step instructions are always handy when you're looking at a new home project. So those are a couple that I wanted to point out. If you have students at the house or you yourself are a student, Homework Help Now is a really great database that I recommend for students. The thing that is really handy in particular, they have live tutoring available from 2 to 11 p.m. 7 days a week, and they have tutors for kindergarten through college. I'm a mathematician, so I get a lot of requests for math tutoring. I don't always have time to sit down and do math tutoring. And it's especially hard right now since I can't do in-person stuff. But one resource that I always recommend people check out this live tutoring. And one thing that's nice about the live tutoring, if you are on there and you're not really enjoying the way your tutor teaches, you can just log out and log back in, and you will probably get a different tutor. They also have Spanish-speaking tutors available, which is handy. And then they also have a writing lab. So if you have a big paper that you're turning in or something that you want proofed, you can upload documents and they will go back, look at it, add some comments, and they'll usually get back to you within 2 to 3 business days. So if you have kind of a good amount of lead time on a project that you're working on, it never hurts to have a second set of eyes on it. Now, the same company who makes Homework Help Now also has a service called Job Now, which is great if you are in the workforce. Maybe you are looking to go into a different field or get a promotion. They have resume help on here. Their templates are okay. They're not my favorite. I usually like Google Docs templates a little better, but they do have a live resume expert where you can get some, live information when you're working on your resume. But the resume lab that they have, you can upload your resume and they will give you back comments. I've done this with a couple of resumes over the years and they always have really good feedback, which is great. And usually there's kind of a variety of people that they employ. So I've had very different types of feedback, even on the same resume, which was helpful because usually when you're applying for jobs, you don't know you don't always know what kind of view they have when they're looking at it. They also have live interview coaches, lists of questions that you might see on interviews. And then if you're, kind of looking for a different field, but you don't know quite where to go, they even have career assessments on here. So Job Now is great. I recommend it to people all the time. And I myself have used it a few times. Now, another one that's kind of fun to look through is Issues and Controversies. Now, this is kind of geared towards like students. Basically, they'll have kind of hot topic items, like the 2020 presidential race is coming up. But what they do is they kind of concatenate resources. There's usually a pro-con article, which is really helpful. The question here is, should voters re-elect President Donald Trump? And they'll have information about what the supporters say, how the opponents are arguing. Now, this is really great if you're working on projects, but maybe you're looking to learn more about presidential candidates. They have primary resources as well as media. So it'll usually be like interviews or newspaper articles and even infographics, which is handy. So if you're also maybe a teacher, they have lots of curriculum tools, including lesson plans. So I actually browse Issues and Controversies kind of just like in my free time because I'm a bit of a nerd, but they have lots of different topics in here and they do a good job of kind of displaying both sides of issues, which can be helpful if you are looking to do more research. Beyond Issues and Controversies, there's just one more on here I wanted to point out. And I touched on it briefly earlier. There is a database called Novelist Plus. Now, this is the database I use most often at work. I probably look at this thing like 8 times a day. But with this, you can find really good reading recommendations. So say you're a reader and you really like J.D. Robb, who writes, you know, mysteries. I can't type. Let's see here. Looking up J.D. Robb. I didn't type it properly. Let me try that again. Robb, J.D. Okay. When you search by author or book title, it'll take you to kind of a, sorry, this thing is very particular. It'll take you to a results page. When you look up authors by title, you'll see kind of the full list of their titles. You can also find lists and articles that mention these authors. So there was an article, if you like Nora Roberts, here's some other books you might enjoy. Or I think Nora Roberts is J.D. Robb. Yeah. And then there's also usually an article. Well, okay, this one doesn't have it quite like I'm used to looking at. But say you enjoy J.D. Robb, this will have some similar authors you might enjoy. If you also have a book club, they have really good articles for book clubs, including like discussion guides, as well as like book club articles on like, how do I re-energize a long-term book club? Or if you're starting a new book club, what are some good tips for you? So library staff, this is like our big power tool. Most of us use it several times a day. And even you can access it from home. Okay, I think that's the last of the databases I wanted to show you. But as you can see, there are a lot of them. And they all have very particular topics, including like auto repair, which I think is interesting. But also on this research tab that we were on earlier, you can find research by topics or by subject. So maybe you're interested in Tulsa and Oklahoma history, but you don't know where to go, or you have a nonprofit or want to start a nonprofit. These research guides by topic kind of go into further detail and will link you to the databases that will be good for your particular area of interest. Say you're a small business owner. It will take you to the small business databases that we have available. Kind of the last tab I wanted to mention is the programs and services. So on here is a link to our online learning. And now this is the page that probably gets the most use for people who attend my classes. And that is largely because of this resource right here. Lynda.com is a service that usually costs a subscription to access, but it is free with your library card. Lynda.com has, I'm gonna type I said I wasn't gonna give you my card number earlier, but I lied. Here I am typing it in. But with lynda.com, you can find lots of video tutorials for different topics. They have business related things. They have technology classes. One thing that they've started doing recently are learning paths. So maybe you find yourself this winter unwilling to go outside into the cold, but you want to learn a new skill. You can come in here and say you spent a lot of time honing your craft from that database we looked at earlier, and you want to become a craft business owner. This is 12 hours of expert created video tutorials. And at the end, you can even get a certification that you can upload to your LinkedIn profile. So if you're looking for a new job, this is a really great way to get some skills without necessarily paying for programs. You can also search by stuff. So say you want to learn how to use Photoshop. I can search by Photoshop or search for Photoshop. And say you're a beginner, we can look specifically for beginner level stuff. And maybe you're wanting Photoshop specifically for photography editing. This will show you new courses. We already have Photoshop 2021 Essential Training out. And it's a 6.5 hour course for beginners. This actually just came out a few days ago. They break it down into smaller pieces over here on the left. But the thing I like most about this is they have exercise files. So if they are doing something on the screen, say they're editing a photo, you know, this photo here, you can actually download that photo and have the same exercise files that they're working with. So it's a good hands-on kind of side-by-side learning experience. So Lynda, it's free with your library card. I learned how to use Photoshop on Lynda, and now I teach Photoshop classes at the library. So you too can learn a new skill. Also on this online learning page that we were on, I'm not going to go into all of these, but Universal Class is a service where you can find classes on lots of different topics. They have like gardening. One of my coworkers, Ellen, took a class on cryptozoology, which is the science of cryptids. So if you want to learn about the chicken man or Sasquatch, that's a good class. Mango Languages is a really great service. They have, I think there's actually more than 73 languages now. But they have languages. I'm taking the Spanish for Librarians class, but they also have like a native language if you want to learn Cherokee, which a lot of Oklahomans speak. There is Russian on here, Spanish, all sorts of languages. And they have good interactive courses that you can work through. ArtistWorks is a service where you can find video tutorials, mostly for music. My coworker Gary learned how to play the ukulele with ArtistWorks. They also have a drawing tutorial on there that's 14 hours long, so it's very in-depth. And then Learning Express Library is a service that has practice exams and study materials for lots of standardized testing, so like nursing tests, the GED, ACT, SAT, ASVAB. And they have, one thing that's great is they have like timed exams on there. So you can create an account and kind of work through the study materials that they have for kind of standardized tests. I think they even have like law enforcement and like paramedic stuff on there, and it's all pretty up to date, which is great. There was one more tab, I lied earlier. I have one more tab I wanted to show you, which is our virtual events tab. Now you guys all signed up for this class today, so you've probably been to one of our event pages. But if you're not familiar with this page, this is where we list all of the events that we have going on across our libraries across the county. You can do a few things on here. You can filter by age group, so maybe you're just looking for classes for adults. You can also search by event type, so maybe you want to find book clubs or you want computer classes. You can search by different topics, and it'll, you know, kind of concatenate all of the computer classes for you. And then one thing you can do on here, and this is great, especially if you have like students or something that you want to send out classes to, you can hit create a brochure, and this is going to show us all of the September 27th through November 8th, 2020 classes for computers, digital services. I can hit download brochure, and it will put together just like a PDF listing of all of the classes that are on our website. So if you want to put something up on your, you know, your fridge at home to remind you of what classes you're interested in, this is a good way to do that. And it's got like a kind of a nice format to look at. Next week, we are going to be talking about 3D modeling for beginners. My coworker Kat is going to be teaching that. She's great. And in November, we have a few exciting classes coming up. But I hope this was helpful for you guys today. I will be on here a bit longer. If you have questions, feel free to drop them down in the chat. But like I said earlier, I'll make sure to send out the recording for this. And if you ever have questions about library resources, feel free to contact me, or you can contact the library. And there's several ways to get a hold of us: email, chat, text, or just stop in at your nearest branch that's open. But like I said, I'll be around for a bit longer if you have questions. But thank you so much for coming today.